Genuine care of people makes for good business. Welcome to Decision Points. I'm Doug Hudson.
I'm Scott Wood.
Welcome Steve Van Amburgh, Chairman and CEO of KDC Real Estate Development and Investments.
Thank you for letting me be here.
My gosh, thanks for taking time to be with us.
This is going to be fun because I told Doug ahead of time, we typically block around an hour. I said, Steve, we could be here for 3 hours with Steve. He's got some great stories to tell. So
what he just invited you to is part 2 and part 3 and part 4.
Okay.
So hopefully this won't be the last time you're in the blue chair.
No, I'm glad to be here. I really am.
Yeah.
Thanks for doing this.
Where are you from?
I'm from right here, grew up about a mile away.
No way.
And this morning was the first day of the Park City's Highland Park schools.
Yes.
And I went over to Higher Elementary and got to watch my 2 granddaughters go to pre-K and first grade.
Wow.
Which was a big deal because they had just moved back to Dallas from Midland, where they've been since they got married. So it was a big day, kind of teary, watching the little girls run off. But, proud to be here. We've got family in Fort Worth.
Okay.
We've got family here. And then we've got a son, Sam, who is in Spain.
Okay.
And he's in the creative and kind of music business. So
Spain fits perfectly.
We are just, every day we wake up and pinch ourselves how fortunate we are to have great kids and great family and great grandkids. Everybody's healthy. I'm looking out the window and there's a place right down the way where my mother, who is 96, lives and has lived for the last 35 years. And she'll be 97, I think, in about 2 months.
Steve, what's her first name?
Her name is Jody or Joanne, and she is a mentor and inspiration. She's actually an angel. She had different kinds of cancer when Leanne and I got married 43 years ago.
Congratulations.
And, she's hanging in there every single day, and we're just so thankful for her.
So what are the grandkids, great-grandkids, what do they call Jody or Joanne?
They call her Jody, and then my wife, Leanne, she is B.
Okay.
And my grandfather name is Buzz. So how we got that is not important.
It might be important.
It might be. I don't know if it's important. It might be entertaining.
There was a guy that was the owner of a really cool kind of ski lodge down on Lake McQueeney where we have a home. And his name was Buzz Miller. And we just loved him so much, and he passed away like at 93, that we decided that if I could ever live up to his sort of personality and way of behaving, it would be great. So that's mine. And then Lee was going to be Lily, and she determined that it would probably be more like Wee Wee. So we decided it was a good idea to be B.
I like that.
Yeah. B and Buzz.
B and Buzz.
Someone listening is going to copy that because that is really, really good.
That is good.
Where's B from?
B is from Lufkin, Texas. All right. And she went to the University of Texas. She grew up in Lufkin and Nacogdoches. She graduated from Nacogdoches High School. She's roughly 4 years younger than I am. She's an incredible wife, an incredible grandmother. Everything that she does is for the family. She really puts herself second, which is really nice, as we all should. And, today, she was the one that got me up at 6 o'clock to make certain that we did the bon voyage party for the 2 granddaughters. So
that's great.
Anyway.
Well, if you're looking for something to do, you sound like you might be bored. Ha ha.
No.
You might need to volunteer at the higher parking lot in the afternoon. I think you ought to see Steve out there working that carpool line in the afternoon. You get to see your grandkids.
Well, I was the president of the Higher Dads Club, and I know the travails of how men really shouldn't get too involved in an elementary school sort of setting.
Yeah.
So we were nothing more really than security guards and coaches, and loved every minute of it.
Absolutely. So you're born and raised here. Where'd you go to school? Where'd you go to college?
I went to Texas A&M for 1 year on a football scholarship, and got there and thought I was a reasonably good player, and within 2 weeks really figured out that my skill set and my speed, my brain was good.
But you really weren't that fast.
But I wasn't fast enough. Yeah.
Who was the coach then?
Well, the coach was Gene Stallings, but that was a year when there was some dissension on the team, and that the Texas A&M sort of leadership and administration decided that they needed to make a change. And so Coach Stallings, who I did admire a lot, he stepped aside, and they brought in Emory Ballard, and he had been at the University of Texas. And that when he came in, he brought in a new defensive coordinator who was the defensive coordinator at the University of Houston, named Melvin Robertson. And Melvin was an incredible coach, but he was totally focused on speed, and that I didn't measure up. I made the team, and Coach Ballard, after spring training, said, "You've made the team. You might even be captain of the special teams. We need your GPA on the team." And I said, "Well, it's 3.1 or something like that."
And that's about double the average.
That was no comment. But anyway, he said, which anyone can appreciate, you have a brother, and your brother's the quarterback at Washington and Lee. Why on earth did not you go there? Because that's one of my favorite schools in the United States. And I didn't have a clue. And so all summer I worked, and right down the street from here is Austin Industries headquarters. And my brother and I worked in the asphalt paving crew group.
Yeah, wow.
And both of us were in the best shape of our lives. And when it was over with, I just kept thinking, if he gave me that kind of solid advice with no emotion, and he wasn't being manipulative, then maybe I should really consider going to Washington and Lee. So that was before all of the, sort of processes that we find today that our kids have to go through. My dad and I called the dean of admissions and told him what my transcript was, and he said, "You're accepted. Can you be here before football starts? 2-a-days are in 11 days."
Wow.
So anyway, I loaded up the car and I went to Washington and Lee, and I had no place to sleep. And I remember going to my brother's place, and all of his friends are now lawyers or retired lawyers in Dallas. And one of the guys is T. Hardy, and he's the head of the Reese Jones Foundation. But I stayed on their couch until I found a place to live about a month later. So, and graduated in 3 years, which was good, and got to play in every football game. Yeah. And I was the captain of the football team my last year, and I must have been a pathetic leader because I think we were 3-6. So we couldn't quite get it over the goal line.
I want to ask you one more question there, because I find it interesting. Why do you think you receive Coach Emory
Ballard?
Why do you think you received his instruction so maturely?
The way that he talked, he was calm. He had incredible integrity. And he actually cared more about me than he did about me as a football player. I think he actually liked me because I carried on a good conversation with him rather than all about me. It was all about, what do you think? If he had said, I don't think you should continue on, I would have stepped aside. Then it would have been a question whether I would have stayed at Texas A&M or transferred to Washington and Lee. There was no real importance or priority for me to continue to play football. But, I just thought it was so nice when somebody was being so empathetic and really feeling for me. And I remember telling my dad that, and he said, that's incredible. What an incredible coach. He said, you ought to think about it.
Yeah.
And, tuition was free at Texas A&M, and even at Washington and Lee back in the day, it was less than $5,000 a year.
Yeah.
And it's obviously a lot more today.
Right.
So you graduate there and kind of walk us through your kind of early career years there, Steve.
Graduated there, and unlike today, where True North understands that a lot of young people want to join your all's kind of profession of, finance and analysis and investment bank and, wealth management, all the different things you all do. I would say back then, the difference was during your summer, it was, from a work ethic standpoint, it was mandatory that you have a job, and that if you wanted to go to summer camp, you went to summer camp probably until you were about 15 or 16. And then you sort of graduated into the summer work program to learn how to work and to make some money. And that my mom and dad, my dad especially, were pretty insistent that we work. And I liked the fact that I didn't want to have to ask my mom and dad for money. And it was nice to work and do that. Everybody worked in my group. If there were 20 friends, all 20 had some kind of employment. And that today, it's almost like the kids are nurtured, and summer camp is an acceptable program. Or there's always this, we have a family vacation for 2 weeks at wherever it might be. And there's a lot of interference, and sort of summer work programs are secondary to the primary, which is, camp and other things. So what's important is when I got out, I had worked summer jobs of working on construction equipment, doing all the, sort of lowest level jobs of fueling Caterpillar dozers and changing oil filters and doing all those sorts of things. And I really enjoyed it. And equipment, I enjoyed operating equipment. I thought it was kind of fun. So when I got out of college, I didn't really have a path. I was an economics and finance major, but I went to work for a company called Romco Equipment Company, which was Bob Mullins. And Bob Mullins was the mayor of Highland Park, and he was also the president of the Salesmanship Club when I got in 1984. And that Bob, just like Emory Ballard, I went and met him, and he cared more about me than anybody, in my opinion, just because I had a good education, but I had the ability to build a relationship with him, and he could see that. And I wanted him to be my mentor because he went to Harvard and he was a very successful guy. So I'll never forget, I accepted the job, $1,200 a month, $1,480 a year. And he said, I'll see you here to welcome you. Your first day on the job will be Monday, and I'll be here at 7 o'clock. You ought to be here a little bit before that. So when I showed up, he opens up the office door over on Irving Boulevard, and had 100 employees. And that he said, come on in and you can take your tie off. And that if you don't mind, if you need to run home real quick and get some work boots, go ahead and go home and get some work boots. And I said, no, I have some in the back seat of the car. And he took me to the locker room. And when I went to Washington and Lee, every day you went to class, it was mandatory that you have a shirt and tie on, preferably a sport coat. And so the first day of work, I'll never forget, he took me to my locker and there were 5 khaki shirts and khaki pants. And they had my name, Steve, over the pocket with Romco on the other side. And, it's kind of funny. I put them on and I was so proud that I had this uniform. But at the same time, I thought, am I going forward or backwards? And he said, nobody can sell unless they have the basics and the understanding of whatever they're selling. So for the first 6 months, it's important that you work in the service department and service and work on every piece of equipment that we might sell. And when you get finished with that 6 months, then we're going to ask you to specialize in one particular type of equipment. I preferred cranes and drag lines and shovels and big equipment. And that I then went through about a 6-week training class where I lived in Idaho, in Pocatello, Idaho, and also in Milwaukee, Wisconsin, which is where a lot of construction equipment's made. Net of it was that foundation was so important. It built a lot of confidence. I look back and I just thought, golly, I'm a service person. That's not what I had envisioned. But then for the next 3 years in the sales area, I became a really good salesman. And I learned by traveling with Bob, how to gain admittance, how to set up appointments, how to communicate with the owner of a business, how to figure out how to call them and have a lunch with them and do all the things that carry on all through our lives. And that the most important thing is when I would come home, most of my friends were either young, aspiring lawyers or they were working at banks. I had the lowest salary by 50%. But when I sold one customer in Paris, Texas, 2 cranes, my commission was roughly $12,000, which was almost exactly what my annual salary was. So I learned a lot about being humble. I learned a lot about working with people that maybe don't have college degrees, but they're really smart people and they're absolutely great to work with. One thing that I learned was one of the sales sort of people that I worked with, he went to Notre Dame and he was a Notre Dame fanatic, and he always said that the head football coach put over the exit from the locker room an inscription, and that it was kind of like, if you have a big head, you're arrogant, it's not a good thing. But it said, arrogance is the anesthetic that dulls the pain of stupidity. And if you really think about that, I've always had this feeling that if somebody is overly arrogant, if they really understood, they would realize how stupid they really are for being an arrogant individual. So hopefully, I walk the walk on that, because, nobody likes people that think all about themselves and all about what they're doing. It's nice when they really reach out and, care for others that are around them. So
it's incredible.
Anyway,
One of the things I would say is, our listeners may or may not know Steve, from Dallas, but like Steve is a master of relationships. And I can see, it's nice to sort of hear, where that really began and how Bob went toward you.
It's funny because I assumed that we would talk about some of the qualitative things of relationship building. But if you're listening and you're struggling with maybe your career path, or maybe you're not going up as quickly as you'd like, it seems like you ought to just stop and you ought to read some inspirational books by the Bible would be a good place to start. And maybe you can distill it down to some kind of inspirational, faith-based, messages. But the other is people gravitate to people that put themselves second. So if you walk in a room and if you're sort of what I refer to as the peacock, and you're spreading your wings, everybody in that room, they're going to look at you. And in my opinion, they're going to say, how long do I have to stay in the room with this person? There are a lot of successful people that are like that, but from a relationship standpoint, they probably don't have that many. They probably are pretty lonely as they get older. And then the other comment I would make is, when you're on a team, whether it's, for example, the salesmanship club that we're in, and you're on a committee or a group, if you have the ability to be a real collaborator and a sharer of information on a very open basis, everybody in the room has more confidence and wants to be around you because you're not depriving them of information. And, they always say there is no I in team.
Right.
And so as a result, at our place, for example, if we have 70 people, I try not to ever use the word I, because it's all of us that are pulling together to, make a project work and to create success.
That's
so,
right.
People that say I did this and I did that, we did it, and there's absolutely no question and just like True North, look at all your guys. You look at the teammates, you look at all the people you have. Those are sharp people.
That's right. It doesn't happen without the team, for sure.
No, and that's the key to success. So we're project managers by and large. The relationship, though, where we tend to really have some strength, repeat business. We currently have done, 4 or 5 projects for JP Morgan. We've done a lot for FedEx. We've done a lot for State Farm. And once you perform once, it's you at least have a foot in the door, and it's easier to walk through that door. And if you're transparent, and if you're a genuine person, and you don't have a litigious or an argumentative kind of side of your personality, then it's no different than, Leanne and I, we just built a new house, and when we moved a little further away from our dry cleaners on Lover's Lane. So we switched to another one, and they were okay. They picked up, it was, whatever. But I missed the people at the old place. They were sweet people, and they smiled when you walked in. They greeted you. They knew that I was always urgently trying to get in and get out. And that Leanne, I said, is there any way we can go back to the old place? And it's on the way to the office. I'll figure out how to drop it off. But her comment was, I'm so glad you said that, because I like them too. So now we're back, and it's almost like a long lost relative that you haven't seen for a while. So
you built a relationship. How do you get into the real estate development business?
Well, when I was in the construction equipment business, I loved every bit of it. I really wanted to be an owner. Even then, I just felt like I had the skills, and whatever I needed to do, I was going to do it as long as it was the right way. And I went to Bob, and Bob had a son who was in the Marines and was roughly 5 or 6 years younger than I was, and Robert, and he was a wonderful guy. And I didn't know if Robert was going to come back and go to work for the company. And I asked Bob if there was any way that I could buy some of the company or invest in the company. And he said, I don't think that's going to happen. I think Robert's going to come back. And when that happened, I just started working harder. The success was really good from a compensation standpoint, but I just didn't feel like I was going to get to the sort of place at the end of the day. And my dad was a successful business guy. He and a partner owned a aggregate concrete asphalt producer, and they sold it to a large public company called Vulcan Materials. And they were the best in class stone, aggregate, sand and gravel, asphalt, concrete company in the country. And that he stayed for a couple of years, but he was an entrepreneurial guy. There was a family here that was, you all have heard of Tyler Corporation, Tyler, and my dad was friends with the chairman and CEO, and they had a subsidiary that was called Atlas Powder Company, which was explosives, sales, distribution, service. They did about $500 million a year, and they had no distributor in the southwestern United States. So my dad arranged at a low number to acquire that distribution company, and he really wanted somebody to operate it. So I said, I'll be the general manager or president or whatever title you want, but I want to be an owner. And I stayed for 3 or 4 years, and my dad was the kind of guy that he had no hobbies, and it was just one of those unfortunate things where I'll never forget the worst day of my life was when I was 27 or 8 years old, and I went to lunch with my dad, and when I got out of the car coming back to the office, I had to face him and look him in the eye and tell him that I was going to be leaving tomorrow and it was going to be the last day. If I needed to stick around for a week or two, I would, but that I was going to do something else. We mended all that, but that's when I went with Las Colinas and Southland Financial, which owned Southland Life Insurance Company, and moved out to Las Colinas and worked for Ben Carpenter and John Carpenter. I was the chief of staff or whatever you want to call it, and helped them kind of do all the things they wanted to do and learn the business, but predominantly from the marketing side. Mm-hmm. And after being in the marketing side for about maybe 18 to 24 months, I remember going to a meeting, and in the meeting was Ben Carpenter, John Carpenter, the owners and founders of Las Colinas and Southland Life Insurance Company, and their family was an incredible Dallas family, and I loved working for them. I mean, it was really fun. And also in that room was Trammell Crow, the patriarch and founder, and his son Harlan, and then a couple of the guys at Trammell Crow, and then me, because I was the leasing person. And we met for an hour and a half about building a new building, which happened to be Texas Commerce Bank Tower. And the Texas Commerce Bank needed roughly half of the building, and that I sat and listened to all of them, and the whole focus was on finance, cap rates, underwriting, loan to value, equity requirements, and that side of the deal. Over 1.5 hours, never once did Mr. Carpenter or John or Trammell Crow or Harlan ask my opinion on anything. And I walked out and I realized that I really needed to change my career path. And instead of being a leasing person, I needed to jump in the trench, like when I went to work with Bob Mullins. And instead of being a service person, I wanted to be a construction manager. I wanted to be a project manager. John thought that was a great idea. And I got to work with architects and work all the way through the design and construction piece. I knew a little bit about construction because of all my summer work. Mm-hmm. And I kind of knew the talk and how they all operated. But I did take a step back, and it was an uncomfortable step. And today, I see young people, maybe in a lot of instances, not willing to take that step back. They don't want to get that experience that really enables them to kind of jump up 3 steps once they have that. Mm-hmm. So after doing that for a couple of years, I then got to blend kind of the marketing, leasing, and the project construction management piece. And the company really, speculative office development was not in favor at that time. It was, if you remember the RTC days, the Resolution Trust and all the problems, I then decided I would focus, if the company would support it, on doing build to suit work, custom building, office buildings, industrial buildings, because those at least you could get financed. And so I went, and I know I'm dating myself, but Republic Bank was the predominant lender for Southland Financial and Las Colinas. And the Republic Bank people, they embraced that idea. The equity needed to get a loan was pretty much the land. so long as we had a tenant. And IBM, Southwestern Bell Telephone, which turned into be AT&T, NEC, the Japanese company. In a short period of time, we did 4 or 5 of those, and the profits were incredible because the creditworthiness of those tenants was so good, it was easy to underwrite. At that time, they elevated me to be the executive vice president of development for the whole company. And whether I was worthy or not, maybe it's just because the projects I was focusing on were profitable, making money and generating fees for the company. Las Colinas had some financial issues. They had over leveraged. Land sales slowed down in the late 80s. I was not able, as an employee of the company, to gain a loan. I started looking, and I found the coal company in California. And it was by happenstance because I was at the national kind of development convention for developers, and Don Koll, Koll, was the founder and chairman. He was a Stanford graduate, a really incredible man. I went to a dinner honoring him as the developer of the year for the entire United States. When they showed on the screen PowerPoint with 1,000 people in the audience, all of the buildings that his company had done up and down the West Coast, I was really impressed. And so it happened to be that I was sitting at a table with his 2 executive vice presidents, one for finance and one for development. And I didn't really notice it because your name tags did not have the company name, which it's always important. Whenever you're in the relationship business, you always want to have a name tag that has your company so they can locate you later. But for what it's worth, we carried on a conversation, and about a week or 2 later, I got a call from one of the 2 guys, and they said, "We're going to be in Dallas. Is there any way we could have dinner with you?" So I met with both of them, and they said, "We're thinking about opening up a Texas office. Would you?" And I could not afford to leave. I needed to work. I had a couple of kids, and Leanne had just left as a recruiter for Jackson Walker. But net of it was, I went to work with Don, and fast forward, the name of our company, KDC, it previously was Coal Development Company, and we were able to acquire the company from Don roughly 22 years ago. He retired, and he was also the developer of everything that you remember when Cabo San Lucas started, the Palmilla Hotel, all the golf courses, Cabo del Sol, Esperanza. There's a lot of developments that are sort of touched by Don. So anyway, it's
incredible. How many years did you work with Coal before you acquired it?
I went to work there in 1989, and so I've been doing the same thing for 35 years. I love it. It's, really rewarding because relationships, it's amazing. You'll just get a call out of the blue from somebody that you haven't talked to in 3 or 4 years, and they will say, "We have a project. We need it in Des Moines. Is there any way that you guys can go up there and take a look at this piece of property and tell us if you can build a 200,000 square foot office building? We'd like to lease it." And to have that confidence and honesty, we do everything on a transparent basis. And we want 0 conflicts of interest. We want to be totally aligned. The only real negotiation is, what is the return on cost or the cap rate that's required? And that they generally have a CFO because they're public companies. And they'll tell us what they think the cap rate is. But I would say Don left right after 9/11, maybe 2 or 3 years. And so we've now been on our own. We have a couple of incredible partners. Salmons Corporation, which is the largest privately owned company. They're here in Dallas. They own a portion of the company. And when we needed capital back in the Great Recession in 2009, they, along with Mort Meyerson and E2M, which is Paul Rousey and Mort and those guys, they invested in the company, and we had an incredible run with them from 2009 all the way, until a couple of years ago when we purchased the majority of that back, but salmon stayed in. So
yeah. So Steve, you may not remember this, but you and I had a conversation probably 4 or 5 years ago, and you were telling me, and this is a great story. It stuck with me, and it was actually very inspiring. But you told me about a time when you and Leanne were on a flight, maybe a Southwest flight, and you were scratching out your net worth on the back of a napkin, and you were kind of like, I think we might be able to make it. It was a difficult time, a difficult season, and you weren't sure if you were going to be able to make it or not, but you're like, maybe if we can do this and this and this, we can kind of get the kids through college, or whatever I can't remember all the details, but you shared that story with me. And
it was actually an index card, and what I did is when I would be on a flight, I would stop for a second, and on one index card I would say qualities I need to work on, or things that maybe I was anxious about or not performing well. And I would write down 5 things, and then I would take that and put it on my desk, because every day if you look at something, it'll kind of embed in your brain, and just quit using the word I. People don't want to hear I. So, but on the other card, I'd add up all of the assets that I had, whatever debt I had. I'm not a debt person. I have no debt. I can't even, I just don't want to go there. And I remember my net worth was some amount, and I was kind of proud that I had that much. And I was probably 35, and I had 3 kids, and I was really trying to figure out what my annual, we all refer to it as burn rate, what I was spending, how much I could save for college, and that over time, if you are patient and if you work the plan, if you jump prematurely and you're not prepared, they always use the word Peter principle. It's not that you're not able to do it, it's just that you're not prepared. And I thought I was really doing well, and then all of a sudden, a little bit of another recession occurred, and a lot of people that were my age didn't maybe have the wherewithal, or they didn't have the perseverance to go through a downturn and have inconsistent, unsecure income. And that when we popped out of that, and I was like 39 or 40 years old, I looked around, and I was actually kind of a leader in the development business, and it didn't really strike me, but that was kind of a defining moment for me, where I needed to step up and actually maybe be a little more accountable, and also have more confidence, not arrogance, but confidence to organize and kind of move a company forward. And that's about the time that Don Cole said, would you like to buy the rest of the company from me? And I didn't have the capital. He provided kind of an installment loan. I was able to get a capital group out of New York to pay him off. And then shortly, in 2007 or 8, paid them off. So we've owned the company, for 17 or 18 years. Yeah. And, the good news was the group that invested in us, we both agreed that we would keep that capital in the company, build a balance sheet that really would sustain cycles, and that we also wanted to make certain that when we went to IBM or Omnicom or AT&T or whichever company, we could tell them and look them in the eyes that we have no financing contingencies, and that we have a letter from JP Morgan or Bank of America to provide us a loan, and that most companies could not say that because there was a lot of struggle back, in kind of the recession days. Most of our competition, the reason we probably won is because we had the ability to say what I just said. So we went through what I would call a hyper growth stage where we got up to roughly 100 people. We're probably back down now just because of just the marketplace, interest rates, inflation, kind of in the 70 range. But what we did is we hired a consultant. He was a man out of Los Angeles named Chris Lee, and he came and spent 1 week with us. He went to our office in Charlotte, Atlanta, Dallas, and interviewed the top 20 some odd people. But while he was interviewing them, everybody in those offices knew that the purpose was for him to give us, the owners of the company, a recommendation on how the company should be sort of operated and how we might change our focus a little bit. So he came back and had about a 3-page report, and that he was a very intelligent guy. And he said, it's clear to me that the foundation of your entire company is built on trust. It's built on transparency, no conflicts of interest, total alignment, and having the ability to really build relationships. So you guys, you do what you say, but then you're smart enough that you've built a project management, construction management organization of 30 people are the best in the business. There are no amateurs. You don't have any interns. They're experienced guys. And that if I were you all, I would change your business model and be 100% client centric. So follow companies wherever they want to go, have new business development people that call on them on a regular basis where the name of your company is at the top of the list. And that instead of focusing on geocentric and having a presence somewhere, let the companies that you work with and build relationships with, take you wherever they want to go. So we did that, and lo and behold, we grew, and our profitability went tenfold. So that index card, I look back and it was now 10 times whatever it was. We then became much more consistent and profitable. We also have a policy that everybody in the company is a partner in the project based on length of time with the company, doesn't make any difference. We think the receptionist is just as important as the president of the company. And so there is a bonus that's paid whenever we have a successful project and we sell it. We have a portion of it that goes to every accountant, every staff person. It can be $3,000, it can be $5,000, it can be a little bit more, but we really want that inclusion, and we want everybody to feel like they're part of the team. So, when you walk in the door, the lady that's our current front end kind of manager, I've known her for a long time. She's an incredible person. She's kind, caring, sharp as a tack. And it's really nice to include her in the victories of whatever that we do. So that's something I think that's been helpful. I think you always want to go down where you overpay your employees if you can. Everybody wants to pay them, period. Right. But overpaying is always a good thing because they see that they're part of a team and they're proud of the accomplishments and they're part of it. So there's no bifurcation or division. Everybody's on the same page. And I like that. And hopefully that'll, be a culture marker in the company for, forever.
You mentioned earlier that your dad didn't have any hobbies. He was an entrepreneur, and so probably worked late into life, I'm guessing. And, certainly you've accomplished plenty in your life from a financial perspective, and don't necessarily need to work, but I know you love what you do. And you said to me one time that Leanne had said to you that this is your gift. How do you think about your gift and using your gift? And
well, it's funny that you said that because we went to California for a few days to get out of the heat and came back yesterday. And I'm at a stage where I'm really trying to figure out the best way to stay with the company, help the younger people, get out of their way, support them, mentor them, But maybe more importantly, we have a really incredible company, and we have a lot of really great friends and partners and contractors and architects, banks, that from a not-for-profit and giving back standpoint, I'd like to focus maybe 40 to 50% of my time on the not-for-profit world and taking some of the rewards that I've been giving and make certain that they're implemented and given back. And I really want my kids and Leanne to be part of that. But I also see a lot of not-for-profits. If I look at them, I can give them 2 or 3 pieces of advice. It's not critical advice, it's just helpful advice. And, at the end of the day, you're kind of judged by people that you surround yourself with. There's a lot of not-for-profits that we support today. The homeless space, Momentous Institute, alcohol and addiction, kids, mental health. There's probably 12 or 15 that we have active kind of hands in. But at the end of the day, when you finally decease and you go to the pearly gates and you're waiting to be admitted or not admitted, my contention is what you do with your skills and your rewards, and how you're generous and helpful and kind and caring and thoughtful is the criteria that is used for you to go to heaven and be with God and Jesus, and how all of that wraps into one. And that I also think that when you go to a funeral service, when people are there, do they really care about whether, as an individual, I was successful in business? If you're successful in business, then what did you do with it? Who did you help? Did you help your kids, your family, your brothers, your sisters, your friends? And did you set a good example for others? In the world of kind of disciple making, those sorts of things are critical, because if you don't have the kind of personality that creates that willingness for people to follow, then you probably didn't do all the things that you were given the God-given abilities to do. So, if I'm starting the last quarter of my life, it's going to be spending whatever amount of time I need to make the business work, but withdraw as appropriate, but stay involved, because I think my ability to be successful in the not-for-profit world, in the faith-based world, is probably accentuated by continuing to being involved in your business, where you have professional relationships and you're still viewed as active. I can't go to the word retirement. Okay, I really want to be retired. Okay, but I don't want to use the word retirement, because I think I'll have more activity and fun as time goes on serving others, as opposed to, feeling like I need to stack up more dollars to, so I'd rather give it away. So,
Steve, I think this was part 1. I think there'll be a part 2.
Anytime. And
I already know the first question. Steve, grateful for you, grateful for your humility. Clearly, people who cared for you turned you into a caring person. So thanks for your time. Thank you for joining us on Decision Points.
Thank you.